from tabbies.ca, and I'm starting my brand new venture with Unique Artisans. So today on our show, we have Serena, and Serena does Strange Enchanted Art. That's how you say it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you run us through a little bit about what you do, Serena?
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of started out as just drawing and an Instagram page that I kind of enjoyed doing. And then I started crocheting, so I started adding that to it. But now I do like I have a shop and I have my Instagram page and I do commissions, mostly for my crochet work. I do sell some of my art, um, which is considered trippy art or trippy paintings. So usually consisting of really bright colors and kind of surreal ideas and stuff like that. Um, and then my crocheting is mostly fashion related. So I like making clothes, hats, things like that, wearables. But kind of used to do blankets, but not as much into that anymore. So
So did you make your outfit today?
yes, I made the hat, and I also made this sweater. I'll stand so you can kind of see. Um, it's a cardigan, and then the back has a
Oh,
kind
I
of
love
star
it.
pattern there, and that's one of the cardigans I made pretty recently.
How exciting. I love crocheting, but I struggle with it, so I'm always excited when people come up with such beautiful things.
Thank you. It's a tough thing to learn for sure. At first, it's kind of awkward, and your hands feel like, especially if you knit before you crochet, you want to do it differently. It doesn't feel natural at first.
So did it take you a long time to develop the skills to do this kind of crocheting?
So I kind of crocheted when I was a kid. My one of my stepmoms at the time, she was really into it, and so she kind of showed me how. But then I stopped. I mean, I think after about a year, and I picked it back up during COVID. So in around 2019. I picked it back up again, and for the first like year and a half, it was really slow. Like it was only blankets, squares, rectangles, learning the stitches. But once I kind of got the hang of all the stitches, going from the blanket to clothes was a lot quicker. The thing that's slow for me is the sewing. I just now am finding that I'm able to sew in a way where it will hold together the same for an extended period of time. At first, it was definitely like every project after a few months, I'd have to re-sew bits of it, and but that's coming along.
So is that your crocheting projects you'd have to sew together?
Yeah, so when you make clothes, sometimes you do it in multiple panels. So like this would have been one side, another side, and then the back. And then you sew it together and you crochet onto the finished piece the like cuffs and the I don't know what I want to call this, a collar kind of.
String?
Um,
Okay.
so you'd kind of sew like crochet all that on after, but you have to sew all the pieces together first.
Oh wow, that's really awesome. I didn't realize that you'd have to sew everything.
Yeah, and it's weird because you sew with like a really big needle and with yarn. So like it's like sewing, but a little more awkward.
Okay, okay, that's awesome. So it's kind of like darning then.
Yeah.
Okay, I know a little bit about it, but I haven't like crochet is something my mom tried to teach me when I was younger, but it's hard to learn.
Definitely. Oh, for sure. It's awkward.
But I do love your crochet. Like the dresses I've seen that you crochet are just beautiful.
Thank you. And it's so much fun. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do with it and different colors. And I mean, you can do the self striping kind of stuff. I make my dress, a lot of the dresses I know you're talking about in. And then, but then you can kind of move on to other color work. It's neat.
Okay. Um, so I know you were talking earlier very quickly about your paintings, and you refer to them as trippy paintings.
Yeah.
I love those neon colors that you have. Did you
Thank you.
mix? Do you mix your own colors, or do you actually buy them neon?
So I actually buy them neon. I struggle with I'm really good with hand control for writing, but I'm not great with using a paintbrush. I am really not great at making strokes. So I actually use neon acrylic paint markers. So it ends up being more like drawing, but it looks like a painting. So I call it a painting, but I'm actually drawing all that on canvas.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I always wondered how you got such smooth lines. It all looks so crisp and clean.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's all the paint marker that like helps to keep it controlled. Like I was always good with a pen. I did calligraphy when I was younger, so I find it's just a more natural move from like the calligraphy to this than a painting would have been.
Yeah.
Um, I've tried and actual paintbrush painting just isn't my thing.
It can be difficult. I love painting with a
Yeah,
paintbrush, but I find when I paint, I can't get my lines to be that crisp. And
it's difficult.
your paintings are so clean. Like the
Thank
lines are
you.
just beautiful.
Thank it definitely it's one of those things where I'm a bit of a perfectionist about stuff like that, so it's nice to have that kind of control with the markers for sure.
I might have to try that then because it's
Yeah,
really like I love the way your paintings turn out, and they're so detailed too.
thank you. I try to add a lot of detail and like lines or other fun colors to kind of bring things out. If one area is where I'm wanting you to look, I'll try to add a little bit of extra color or details to that area so it draws you in.
Oh yeah, and you do a great job. Like your paintings are very effective that way.
Thank you.
So how long have you been painting then?
So I probably say only about that's been shorter than the crocheting. So it started with, like I said, drawing at the beginning of COVID. I just started drawing and I only drew flowers, and then
Okay.
like sometimes calligraphy. And then probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago, but I think more like a year ago, I moved into the painting. Um, and I guess it was last Christmas I kind of got the, paint markers around Christmas time and kind of picked it up, but it's grown from there, and it's definitely been, like a challenge learning it, but it's been a lot of fun seeing it kind of progress from where it started.
That's really exciting. To see your work, I would have never thought that it would have been only a year ago.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was one of those things where, like, I was really nervous to start doing it because I was like, "Oh, if I can't do it well, then what's the point?" But sticking with it was really, really fun and one of those things where, like, I'm glad I stuck with it because seeing progress and seeing, it kind of get better and get it all cementing in your mind feels kind of nice.
No, I understand that. I was not very good when I first started painting at all. And even now, if I try something new, if I try a new technique, I find that, it takes a while to really kind of grasp it.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Especially with brush painting, like I know you said you enjoy doing it's every stroke is a different kind of movement and a new technique, right?
So is it like that with the paint markers? Like, can you manipulate your strokes a lot?
Yeah, so you can manipulate the strokes. Like if you wanted to make hair, you could kind of pull up still with it, or for finer lines, you want to make sure you're not pressing down as hard. It's a bit easier to control for sure. The hard thing that I've been learning is blending the paint markers. You can kind of, if you catch it when it's wet, blend the colors together with your finger.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you say inspires you?
So honestly, what inspired me to start was I've always struggled with kind of depression and anxiety and things like that. So I spent a lot of time kind of to myself, but I didn't really know what to do with that time. So I spent a lot of time, overthinking or watching TV, way too much TV. And eventually my brain just needed something else, something different. So what inspires me really is the feeling it gives me to kind of put everything that's in my head down or on the paper. Or with crocheting, it's just a distraction. If my mind's all over the place, it's a really nice way to relax and tune out. So that's what inspired me to start. And now it's just the feeling of, creating something that's unique and different and, like me, even if I'm not always great at projecting through my words the way that I feel, I can kind of take who I am and express that through bright colors and weird fashion and stuff like that.
I know exactly what you mean by that that release of emotion. I find, especially if I'm highly emotional when I paint, I can almost feel that leaving me.
100%. Yeah.
So, would you suggest to anyone who's like um, kind of struggling within themselves, like they're caught within themselves, to try some type of art?
For sure. I definitely think it's a way of, I mean, you can kind of draw literally what you're feeling. That's a way of doing it. But even if you just, like for me, I don't draw a lot of things that look like they're expressing how I'm feeling, but instead putting down all that bright positivity onto paper, it makes you feel better, like seeing all the fun stuff, the bright colors. I think that there's lots of different ways you can use art as like a kind of therapy, for lack of a better word. There's lots of ways that it helps in that. Like just different ways you can take it, and I think that it's a great way to keep your mind busy, and it's a great way to have fun and to feel happy if you're not feeling very happy. So yeah, I definitely suggest it to anyone who's kind of struggling and needs something to do to keep themselves busy.
That's a lot of great advice, really. Because it does keep you busy. It does kind of separate you from those thoughts.
Exactly. If you're kind of, especially if you're an overthinker, right, and you're kind of sitting there and ruminating could be the word about all those negative things, those bad thoughts. It's a way to focus on something else for a bit. You don't even have to force yourself to think positively, but just not thinking about those things in itself feels really good sometimes.
You talking about how you can let those emotions out through your paint and through your. Do you find the same with crochet as well?
Yeah, so sometimes I describe it as like meditating with yarn. I find it very difficult to do things like meditation and stuff. I struggle without something to really focus on to kind of be in the moment. Um,
Okay.
but the focus you have to put into crocheting really helps you to stay centered and in the moment and not kind of all over the place. It's great.
Well, I know that from looking at the end result, there's a lot of beauty in what you're making.
Thank you. I definitely hope that other people like it and it's fun. I definitely try to be, I mean, fun and random with a lot of the stuff that I do, but I like that and I hope that kind of reaches people, that it's meant to be kind of fun.
No, and I feel that when I look at your art, I do feel that that's really, it's kind of fun and joyous, and it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
No, I love that about your art. Like it's when I look at the paint pieces, like they have that kind of whimsicalness to them that I think really helps them. Um, it helps me relate to them.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. Yeah, like it's not trying to be too deep or out of touch. Not that there's anything wrong with being very deep, but I've tried to go for a very, the point is that it's bright and happy, and I hope that it makes people feel that way, or that it's kind of easy to relate to in a way.
No, and I do feel like that when I look at your art. It feels fun. It feels happy, and it feels fresh too.
Thank you.
So a lot of it, I've noticed there's like this kind of spacey kind of theme to it. Do you
Yeah.
like that kind of like? Is that something that you're drawn to in your life?
So it's interesting because no, I've never had a lot of interest in like space itself or anything like that. But I've always been drawn in a visual way to the look of like galaxy. And as a kid, I definitely liked looking up at the stars. I was never fascinated about like what was out there per se. Not that I
Yeah.
wasn't, but it wasn't a huge fascination. But the visual imagery of a starry night and galaxy and all the, I like the idea of we don't know what's out there, so sometimes I incorporate space with, like, the weird mushrooms and eyes because it's all kind of mystical and out there, and we don't really know what's out there. And then space kind of incorporates that well, I find.
Okay. And it almost kind of mixes in with that whole thought too, right? Like getting your thoughts out and stuff. Sometimes our thoughts are really kind of out there or really kind of
Yeah,
mysterious even to us.
100%. And like the idea of being spacey and space is one of those jokes I think I've played on in one of my pieces, a bit spaced out. Um, in which I think is a huge thing when you're kind of feeling like that, right? Your thoughts are scattered and you're all over the place. It feels a bit spacey.
What would you say to someone who is because you haven't been doing this for very long, right? This is only
No.
2 years about.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, actually, you said you started in 2019. You started to create, but you've only how long have you had your business now?
So my business is really new. Like I think I started my Etsy store up only about 3 or 4 months ago. Commissions for crochet I've taken from friends and family for probably about 2 years. It's maybe 2020-ish kind of area, but the business, like the Etsy and everything like that, is really, really new.
And what would you say to someone who's maybe wanting to start art but was still holding back because they were kind of scared or
So what I definitely say is don't let the idea of not being good at it stop you from doing it, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's all subjective, right? Like someone's probably going to like your work. Someone's bound to find it, relate to it or find it fresh or really like that idea. And it takes time to really kind of get the hang of a style, especially. And you also have to take time to find a style. So my kind of advice is just don't take it too seriously at first. Have fun with it and realize that it won't be perfect, but eventually you'll really start to like the things that you create and your style will come across. And it gets easier with time.
so you were talking about finding your style. You definitely have found your style. When you look at your art, there's really a unity between the pieces. But
Thank you.
what is your like? How did you find your style?
So it's funny because at first I definitely was not into the like not into the trippy thing, but it wasn't my style at first at all. Like I said, I was mostly floral and calligraphy and things like that. And it really was I don't know how to put it. It was kind of because I liked the idea of the cottage core mushrooms and
Yep.
naturey kind of stuff. Um, but I saw a trippy piece that really it felt more like I think it was actually an artist I still follow, but I saw one of her posts and she had done a really good job of incorporating all these naturey things that I really liked in a much more fun way. And I
Okay.
liked working with things like glitter, and I really like bright imagery. It's something like it makes my senses happy. So when I kind of saw her piece, I was like, I'd love to create something like that. So I started trying to incorporate all the things I was doing before, flowers and mushrooms, but just make it brighter. And so as I did it, I realized that, yeah, it kind of did look trippy. So I started, using the inspiration from others, but also just taking everything that I loved and just went with that style. I decided if I was going to keep going, I wanted to get good in one area, and that was the area that felt most like me.
Well, I'm so glad that you were brave enough to follow your own trail because your art is very individual and just beautiful.
Thank you. I definitely try and make sure that it's um, not like others. I don't want to ever be copying someone else. And as much as, like I said, I draw inspiration for sure from a lot of the other trippy artists that I do follow on social media, but I try to always make sure that I'm incorporating things that I like and my style into it, not trying to look like something else.
And it is hard to make that, like to make your own style. It's hard to really kind of etch out your own niche.
100%. It is difficult to kind of make sure that while you're, you know, especially nowadays with things like algorithms and stuff, you want to make sure that your art plays to an audience in a way where it's going to get seen while still not losing yourself in trying to be liked. You know what I mean? So that's been something that's been kind of difficult, making sure that it still like gets out there and gets seen, but isn't the same as the stuff that's getting seen.
Yep.
um, it's a fine line to walk, but you do find it eventually, whether it be just remembering themes that were kind of liked and sticking with them or things like that. It comes along.
Well, I know it's been really exciting to kind of watch your art evolve through social media. I love when you first started coming out with the crocheted wearables, they were just gorgeous and felt something about them that feels very fresh and new. Like it's I hadn't ever seen those kinds of dresses and such before. And I do love your dresses. Like they are just so beautiful.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
but watching your art progress has really been enjoyable for me. Like I love the pieces you're coming out with, and you're coming out with more and more of them all the time, and I just love them.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying for sure to make sure they're coming out at a pace where it keeps people interested, but where I'm still putting high quality into the work. So it's hard, especially as I start kind of working more. I'm not able to produce things as fast, but I like to think I'm pretty fast with it. I'm making a sweater and a sweater dress right now. So,
Oh wow! So you've always got something on the hook.
oh yes, oh for sure. Always
So,
hooking, for lack of a better term.
so how often does it take you to create one of those crochet pieces? Like obviously there would be difference between like a hat and a sweater, but like
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of time involved in that.
There definitely is. So when I'm not working and I don't have anything to do, I am usually working on some kind of project pretty much from morning till night. I might take a break and I mean, I obviously eat and I chat with my partner and all that kind of stuff, but um I don't I'm almost working all day. Like I'd say cardigan kind of like this, I could probably finish in 2 days,
Oh
but
wow!
if it would be working on one project the whole day to finish it, which I do. I get a bit of the hyper fixation, um, so I can definitely go that long. But so I wouldn't say it's quick. It's just that I crochet too much.
I don't think there's ever too much of too much of a good art form, really.
Exactly. If you love it, then it's not too much.
But that is really exciting. Your paintings though they take a lot less time than the crocheting, right?
Yeah, like I could finish a paint piece in probably like a smaller one in 3 hours. Um, the planning takes a bit longer because I definitely do like a few sketches beforehand to get the idea out. So it's longer than just the 3 hours it takes to paint it, but it's certainly nowhere near as long as the planning and crocheting and sewing that goes into a single wearable.
Yeah, that would be a lot of planning. You have to decide beforehand what colors you want and how the pattern. So, do you design your own patterns? That was the other question.
So some of them are ones that I read, like that rainbow dress I made. It was partially me because I took a pattern that I found, made it, and then added a bunch kind of to it, which is something I like to do. Kind of take a pattern and add my own spin on it. I rarely use the colors that are suggested in a pattern. But recently, I've started making my own. Like this kind of sweater I've got on here was all my own pattern. Yeah, I just
Oh,
kind of
wow.
it was funny because I had sewed cardigans before, so I knew how to do the construction. So it was just kind of deciding what stitches I was going to use for the back and what stitches I wanted to use for the front. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm just so used to kind of the construction of a piece that I can kind of grab everything I need and go from there. Um, Sometimes I still use patterns that other people have written. I got a commission from someone recently and they sent me a pattern and said, "Can you make this, but in rainbow?" And it was so that was fun. I still like reading patterns and it's good to keep up on that skill for sure, but I prefer making my own.
Wow, well, that's a lot of talent because to make your own crochet patterns, especially on the fly like that, I mean, That's really really talented.
Thank you. It's it's fun too. I think it helps keep your mind kind of going to make it in the moment and kind of just decide on the fly. Sometimes I don't even start with a plan. I'll kind of have an idea in mind, but not a real plan, and I just kind of keep going until I like the way it looks.
Oh, I love that though. I mean, the stuff you come up with, a lot of it is really really unique, and it's very much your own. And I
Thank
love that.
And I do too. I mean, I like being able to make what I like, which is why all my items, if it's in my store, it's usually something that I've made for myself, and then I'm saying I can recreate that. But everything I make is something that I have all the intentions of keeping for myself, and I try to kind of make if I'd wear it, then it's something I'd want to sell.
So that's kind of a unique statement because a lot of creators find that they try to make something for themselves and they never end up getting to keep it.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And the reason I do it the way I do it is I found that wearing my own clothes is actually the best way of advertising it. When I'm out and about, people will say, "Oh, did you make that?" or "Where did you get it?" And then I can kind of give them my business card, or even just say like, "Oh, if you go to this Instagram, you can see more of what I make." And then people kind of contact me that way for commissions and stuff. So as much as I'm sure it's cheaper in the long run to just make one and sell it. For me, it's worth it to get that kind of extra flow into my kind of social medias to just kind of wear it myself.
And they look lovely on you. So why wouldn't you wear them?
It's the other thing. Then I spend less money on clothes. It's cheaper to make them anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true. And clothing is going up in price.
Oh,
Everything's pretty expensive nowadays.
it really is. And I mean, making it's expensive too. Don't get me wrong, but it can be cheaper, especially if you're willing to like I I'd love to make all of my clothes in pure cotton, but I don't. I use acrylic for right now, which some people are not a fan of. But for me, I find that if I use a higher quality acrylic and wash it just once, then it feels really soft. It's not soft till you wash it, which is something I have to tell people. It's going to come in feeling rough, but give it one cycle and it'll feel really soft. But that's how I keep my costs down, really, is by using kind of cheaper yarns, but they hold up and they look really pretty too still.
So what's your favorite kind of yarn then?
So I love a worsted weight yarn, a medium weight. I find that it's kind of the easiest to work with while still maintaining some warmth, but it doesn't look too bulky. And
Okay.
I usually use Lion Brand Pound of Love yarn. um, as of right now. And it's because it's affordable. You get a lot of it in one, so you don't have to worry about the dye lot changing, where sometimes you buy something, but they give you one from two dye lots and one's darker. So then
Yeah.
you're like, what do I do with that? So when you get a whole like pound of it, it's 1,000 yards basically of yarn. You can make pretty much an entire sweater from just that 1 pound, and then you don't have to worry about getting different dye lots, or sometimes the yarn will actually feel a bit different depending on the skein that you get, so you don't have to worry about those things as much.
And that's really important too to note because the dye lots do change the way the end piece is
A
going to be.
100%. It's such a shame sometimes when you end up getting like I have done projects where I get a few balls, and I order them, and then I'm looking and I'm like, I know I ordered all the same color, but that blue is not the same. So you have to kind of try and either incorporate the different color into being part of it, or you have to just kind of chuck that ball out and hope the rest is enough.
So is it easy, like when you have the two different dye lots, when you put them together, can you see really easily? Or is it something that you don't really notice till it starts coming together?
So it depends. Sometimes it's really obvious, like it's almost looks like a completely darker shade or a lighter shade. And in that case, I usually save it till last, and then I'll try to use it for things like the collar or cuffs. If you do it that way, it kind of looks like it was purposeful. Um,
Okay.
but otherwise, it's kind of awkward to work in. Sometimes the color's close enough that you could get away with it and somebody might not notice. That's the piece I'd usually keep for myself, the one that has a bit of a weird color swap. But if it's going to be really obvious, I do try to save it for a different part of the project.
Okay. And so do you have like when you do it, do you find that you have like a lot of leftovers? Like I know when I sew, I have a lot of scraps left over.
Yes, so I have a lot. I actually have a bookshelf over to my right where I keep kind of the spare yarn until I figure out something to do with it. And I've got like a lot of half balls. I've even got sometimes where it's like just a strand of yarn left over at the end. And I'm like, maybe I could use it even just to sew. But
Yes.
otherwise, I feel bad throwing it out, but sometimes it just sits there.
I do know that feeling. I hate to waste as well. I have a big Rubbermaid container that's just full of fabric scraps. And I
Yes.
do try to use them, but there's probably more scraps than I'll ever go through in there.
Yep. It's some people make beautiful things with scraps. Like they'll make like whole like cardigans just out of scrap yarn that are just many different colors. I haven't got around to one yet. I'm a bit too much of a perfectionist for it, which is silly because I think it's beautiful when other people do it, but when I go to do it, I'm like, "Oh, I'm not joining this in at a spot that I like, and now I hate it." So, I'm a bit too picky for it as of yet. I'm hoping to kinda get to that, point where I feel a bit better about incorporating scraps. I thought about even making them just into pockets to put on things.
Hmm,
Yeah, something a bit smaller, doesn't use a lot of yarn, and if the color happens to match something else, you can just have a uh, color blocked kind of look with different colored pockets going on, and it could look fun. Um,
that actually is a fun idea.
I thought so. I like doing color blocking. You'll rarely find a project of mine where everything is one color. Even right now, I'm making a sweater dress, and it's all in a dark green, kind of for the Christmas season. But I'm using different colors to actually create flowers on it. And then those
Oh,
crocheted flowers are being sewed onto it after, so it's still all different colors.
that's beautiful. That's going to be exciting to see.
Thank you, I'm really excited. I'm hoping to do a kind of, like, ear warmer to go with it that also has it'll almost look like a flower crown.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, who says you can't look beautiful in the snow?
Exactly.
So I am getting a little bit closer to the end. I just want to ask: is there anything
Yeah.
um, that you want people to know about you or about what you do?
So, I guess if I wanted anybody to know something, it's just that, I guess if I had one note to end it on, it's just to never take your work too seriously. I like you said with my work, it's all very it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's not trying to be um, anything, and it's the same with my crochet stuff. I'm not trying to go for a very specific fashion sense. It's all very just however I felt that day. Have fun, be yourself, even if that's not the same on a day to day basis. Um, and even with like right now, like I haven't actually made any sales on my Etsy as of yet. I've done some made some commissions through my Instagram. I had a London flash fashion blogger actually, so a local area fashion blogger who got me to make a sweater for her, and that was a lot of fun. But my Etsy hasn't really taken off, but I just don't take myself too seriously, so it doesn't really hurt. I'm excited for the idea that one day I might make a sale. Um, but as long as you don't take it too seriously, it still remains fun. Even if you're trying to make it into a small business and make some money off of it, if you're not super um, into the idea that it has to take off to be good, um, then you can still have fun with it. And I can still make clothes for myself and people will still compliment it. And if I never make a dime, it's still something I'm proud of because at the end of the day, I'm willing to keep doing it. And I think that's an important mindset to have if you're going to start kind of a small business with art. If
Yeah,
it doesn't take off, it's still good. You'll never feel too bad about yourself. And I think that's important, especially if you're doing it for mental health. You don't want it to start to drag your mental health down.
that's a good point. A really good point. And I love what you're saying about the not worrying too much at first about making sales because it is an art form you're developing.
Exactly. And it takes time for things to take off and it takes time for your skills to go up. And making it nowadays with art and sales is kind of really hard. I mean, it's hard to get seen with the algorithms. You have to be especially these days willing to make a lot of videos of yourself, which I'm a bit awkward with. So I know it's going to take a bit longer in the end for it to take off, and it's just important to remember that that's not a reflection of your skill set. That's just a reflection of where your business is at, and also just where, like, could be that you're an amazing artist but you're not very good at marketing, and that affects sales. It's not to say that your product isn't great.
And I've run into that a lot where I've met people who had amazing products and, I mean, just were great artists. And, sometimes their personality wasn't was a little more abrasive, which made
Yes.
it kind of hard to connect with. And
Yep.
what you're saying about the algorithms is so true. I know I do struggle with my own Etsy store making sales on Etsy, but then I make most of my sales through word of mouth off of Facebook and friends and family. So it
Exactly.
kind of evens itself out a little.
100%. Yeah, I'm the same way. Mostly it's friends and family, and then other people they've referred to me asking for commissions. And I do make like an okay amount of money doing that. Funny enough, my grandma, a lot of her friends like me to crochet them like lace scarves and dishcloths and stuff. And even if it's not a wearable that I love making, it's a dishcloth. At the end of the day, that kind of small income still helps me to keep creating the things that I love. So I still take it as a win.
And it definitely is a win. Anything that gets you to keep creating, in my book, is a win.
Exactly. And especially with my paintings, like I've never sold a painting. And that's okay though, because at the end of the day, even the followers I have on my Instagram and the fact that they like it, and people say it's a lot of fun, and I've even had people who say like, my paintings make them feel happy because they're really bright and fun. And that to me is still a win too. I mean, it might not sell, but someone liked it enough to go out of their way to tell me, and that still feels good.
And that doesn't mean that they're not going to sell. It just means that right now
Oh
you
yeah.
haven't found the right buyer, or people
Exactly.
haven't been brave enough to just take it and you know put it up. I love your art, so don't be surprised if I tell everybody about it because I do find something really refreshing in that kind of whimsical way that you create those pictures. And
Thank you.
I love this design that you're developing.
Thank you
The,
so much.
both the crocheting and the paints, like I just, there's something there that's not really tangible, but you can't really explain until someone has actually seen the art.
For sure, and I hope like anybody who sees this and they and they see my profile, I hope that they like it too, and that they kind of see what I'm going for there. And I hope it's fun. Like I said, it's all just it's fun for me, and I want that kind of happiness and joy that it brings me to shine through is kind of, yeah, what I'm going for.
Well, I definitely feel that in your art. I definitely, when I look at the paintings, I feel joy. Like, I love the frogs, especially with their eyes and stuff. They get to me every time. And the mushrooms. I love the mushrooms with the eye on. I love them.
Oh, thank you.
But
Frogs are a lot of fun. It's the only animal I can draw, so
I'm sure that there's more that you'll be able to draw in the future. And, like,
it's in practice.
well, I can't wait to see what wonderful things come out of your studio because I mean, right now you're a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, well,
And
thank you.
I know you're going to do wonderful things. So
That means so much. And I love your work. It's beautiful. I love all your posts, and it's just really fantastic. So it means a lot coming from you.
thanks, Serena. But I do mean it honestly. Like, I really do love your work.
Thank
But I think that we'll wrap up today. Hopefully, I
you.
can bring you back on the show. We're still in our infancy, so we'll see how this works out. But
For
right
sure.
now, I'm loving showing everyone what there is out there.
Oh, for sure. And I love that you took the time to ask me these questions and bring me on here. It's been a lot of fun. And I appreciate being the first.
Well, I
Very
appreciate
exciting.
you coming. I
Thank
know
you.
it takes a lot of bravery to come and publicly talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Like it, it's a very personal experience to create art.
It definitely is. It's an emotional experience and it's personal, and I love sharing that with people. Makes me nervous, but it's a bit easier to share it when it's in the form of kind of art for sure.
I agree with you there. It is easier to share art than it is to
Yeah,
share how you're feeling and what's going on inside of your body.
exactly.
But thank you so much for coming here and showing, like, I have your links will be up and everybody gets to see all of the beautiful art.
Oh,
Um,
yay.
so I'm really excited for everyone to kind of see that. So
I'm
thank you
really
so much. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of this. And I really appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing because what you're doing is amazing.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me tonight. I've had a lot of fun, and I hope everyone likes the stuff, and bye to everyone out there.
Thanks so much, Serena. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Bye for now.
Bye.